Game 92, Luton versus Fulham on the 19th of May 2024, titled Sunday Fun Day. TalkSport Studios beckon me to go to London for the last time of the season today, and it is a Sunday afternoon finish for us. As is the wont of the Premier League, all games kick off at the same time on this Sunday to stop any collusion of results should relegation and title still need to be decided. So a different time but the same old routine for moi. I take it all in and think about it, hopefully starting all over again in August. The football season in my mind is a hill, where you climb to the top of the hill from August to December before running all the way down to April-May time. And my goodness, we seem to have sprinted downhill. That is maybe because I'm over 30. For me, I often think of the season in any sport being parabolas, a sort of wavy line graph. So, a good start to the season sees a dip around the midpoint before rising towards the end of the season. Conversely, a poor start rises and falls between the midpoint of the season and the end. Luton Town's season did just that, started slowly then rose before dipping towards the end, ending in the inevitable relegation. The killer blow was being 3 up against Bournemouth and losing 4-3. Mentally, that would have been tough. It is a greyish day, perforated with some sunshine. The studio is awash with conversations about our games, most of which are dead rubbers, and the inevitable chat about the fallow months ahead, the rest of May, June, July, and a couple of weeks of August. There is still some Euro stuff for me on the horizon, but how much, I'm not sure just yet. I sit in my booth doing the final prep and checks and reflect on actually how much I enjoy the job. Again, the classic case of whinging during the season, then when it has to stop for the end of season, realising you don't want to stop. We are told prior to the games getting underway that TalkSport would like to buy us a drink in the pub across the way afterwards, and that there is a table booked. Kenilworth Road is packed ahead of the visit of Fulham and now bathed in sunshine. Luton start brightly before Adama Traore scores for Fulham from the edge of the box. It is a very sweet strike. It is knocked into him on the edge of the box from his right and along the ground. For me, he actually stops it incorrectly with the outside of his right foot. Most people, I think, would have let it come across his body and used the instep of his left boot. But what do I know? It pops up off the outside of his right boot and then he drills the ball with his right foot on the volley low into the net. But it's one of those strikes where it is struck about a foot off the floor and it stays struck and a foot off the floor all the way into the net. A thing of beauty and in from the moment it left his foot. Luton equalised from the spot before Jimenez strokes one in from the edge of the box for a 2-1 lead at the break, and a great game to commentate on for a dead rubber. Buoyed by the spectacle, I feel a little pride as others were not so complimentary about their first halves. 3 goals before the break were followed by another 3 after the break. A Doughty free kick which eluded everyone, a Jimenez header and a Wilson curler saw Fulham win 4-2 away. Considered done before we headed out to the pub. Whilst the commentators leave, there is a package sent out over the airways of commentary wrapping up the season, which includes laughter as well as goal shouts. We never get to hear it, but I hope I get a bit of both for my year's work. In the pub, I'm talking to one of the more senior in terms of football achievements on the mic and not in age, and it feels as though I'm enjoying the chat more than him. He does seek a way out after 5 minutes, but it does make me think. I find a spot with some young lads and we have a chat and a laugh. But I find myself suddenly looking at the comm squad, smiling and chatting. Suddenly not actually hearing the words, just the hubble and bubble before thinking about Russell. He wasn't there. He didn't make it. It all became a little hard for me to quite understand life and its patterns. I glanced across at the guy who really didn't want to converse earlier. He is a decent chap, but he felt he was too lofty to talk. Or maybe it's me that's an arse. Wrapped up in my own crap thoughts and feeling the loss of a friend, and someone who was always a great friend to me. I'm suddenly back in the room when Jono says he's heading off. I have a little chat before he heads off and I make my way shortly after. Jubilee line to Bakerloo line to Marylebone and then on the train home. A few alcoholic beverages inside me and the last jaunt home from London for hopefully only a short while. We walk through the doors and relax. Some thoughts still preoccupy my mind, and on reflection I know those thoughts will linger and surface every now and again. Once in bed I reflect on the day. One game left before I bid your ears and eyes a fond farewell. But for now, sleep and dreams beckon. I have varied dreams, worried ones, frustrated ones, and fucking absolutely bizarre ones. They say it is your subconsciousness that influences your dreams. Well, after today, tonight's could be a doozy. Game 93, Olympiacos versus Fiorentina on the 29th of May 2024. Titled, The Last Game of the Season. It has been 10 days since I last commentated. 10 days feels like an eternity. Good grief, we're still only in May. Being idle in the commentary world is like not being wanted, and this is enforced, i.e. the summer break. I do have some Euros lined up, and the Gary Briggs studio will be my home for those. But tonight it is the Europa Conference League final. Doesn't sound too grand, but West Ham fans will tell you it is a European trophy. Back in the day, well, 1976, Manchester United under Tommy Docherty were hot favourites to lift the FA Cup versus Southampton. But they didn't. Little Bobby Stokes scored the only goal of the game to lift the FA Cup for the Saints, which prompted Tommy Docherty post-match to say, "Don't worry, we'll win it next year." And United did, against a very good Liverpool side. So why do I mention it? West Ham beat Fiorentina in the Europa Conference League final last year with a 90th minute Jared Bowen winner, and now Fiorentina were back in the final. My life, when listened to or read, does have some big cultural divides, and I talk about the game as something everybody knows, but it's not. For some people listening or reading, 1976 is about 30 years before they're born. I drive into the studio and go through the necessary pre-checks, etc., and sort the sides out. It is a final. I know their respective routes to the final, top scorers in the competition, ever-presence in the competition, and records in Europe. I have studied, that's a bit strong, noted the formation and inverted wingers, etc., and look at their domestic records. But it is a final, and they both want to win. Enough said, really. So here we go into game 93. Will it be good, bad, or indifferent? Honestly, it is, for me, forgettable. Alcabi scores an extra-time winner to clinch victory for Olympiacos. Fiorentina fail late on, again in the final. As I pack up, I glance down at my paperwork. Scribbles here and there, odd notes in scrawled handwriting, nothing of any tangible meaning if you looked at them on another day. But for me, bullet-pointy prompts. I spend maybe too long pondering over how I do things, how I set up, etc. I sit back and think how others prep, and the sheets they set up, and then recall the books of John Motson, all written perfectly like books the monks used to write many, many years ago. Sadly though, I do keep my papers. Why, I do not know. Nobody apart from me would give a shit about them, but I do. Maybe it sort of gives me some credence in my own mind that I'm doing something a little elevated in terms of performing. I have been a brickie, and I see other everyday jobs from bankers to bus drivers. Maybe it makes me feel inwardly as though I'm a little specialer because of my low opinion of myself. But it is not. I think there are many people out there who could do it. Whether they want to or not, it is a different thing. Our own thoughts about ourselves are not always correct. For years after picking my boys up from primary school, I thought about becoming a stand-up comedian, as I'd always heard other parents say about me, "Watch out for him, he's funny." That is a lot of writing for one punchline. I pack away and chat briefly with the paymasters, and on my return home pop my bag into my office. In doing so, I knock the mouse on my desk and my computer screen comes alive. So I check if my rating in terms of stars is in. Yep, it is, and it's a straight 5-star review, which is nice as it was a tough 120-minute solo slog. Now the real work sets in. On rising tomorrow morning, I need to concentrate on my work and catch up. Do I really want to deal with another level access shower? The answer has to be yes. As if I don't, I couldn't choose to commentate on another 93 games whether I want to or not. It is interesting to see on LinkedIn that other commentators are now talking about the amount of matches they have done, etc. It feels nice to be followed or mimicked. But that is not why I've done this. I did it because I thought it may interest some of you, and in a cerebral way, you may now know everyone is the same but different. We are all special. Seriously. Season 23-24 Roundup. So there you are. You are free to listen to what you want and not some old geezer spouting about the groins he has gyrating in his eyeline on a train or the strange pathways his mind takes him down. or simply his terribly painful knee. What I've tried to do, maybe successfully or not, is to explain what this journeyman commentator has experienced. Maybe a little too candidly and maybe too revealing in terms of my life. I do sweat the small stuff, and I do need to be busy. I find my mind controls me, and I know it controls us all, but I feel mine can be a little spurious and erratic. At times I feel suppression of natural emotions can lead to anger, and then the suppression of anger makes me crabby. But in the last 9 months of this sporting season, there has been a lot of life, pondering over games and names, pondering over decisions, and then pondering on why. The loss of a colleague in mid-season, the feeling of being used and abused has made this job at times a bit of a mental struggle. But we are there, we are over the line, and I look forward to going again as soon as possible. For me, this podcasting has, as I write these final few words, been something I have finally completed. And like other podcasts or shows or films, there are outtakes. Words that have been written that couldn't see the light of day. Times when things have happened that really couldn't be aired. Some have said it got too dark, but I can honestly tell them that those were just dimly lit episodes and not the really dark parts. But I've been there in some big moments. Chris Basham's horrific leg break at Fulham, get well soon Chris. Tom Lockyer's heart attack in the middle of the pitch at Bournemouth, get well soon Tom. And the loss of our colleague Russ. Thanks for being a part of my life, Russ. Breathtaking goals and moments of mirth, and trying to convey my feelings and thoughts in words at a time, remembering I never got any qualifications and my written work is poor. 112,500 words later, just over, and I have finished. What did I learn from this experience? 93 games is a lot of travelling to and from them games, and preparation is basically the same. So being a little mad has helped me hopefully give you a few smiles. You may never get on a train without trying not to look at something, or basically catching someone's eye, or even wondering why people dress like that. But we are all basically the same but different. At the end of the James Bond movies, they normally end saying, James will be back in ... For me, I am thinking of revisiting a period of my life when I look back on fondly at a radio show we did called The Big Banana Football Show on Jack FM. It ran for just under 6 years. Now there were some interesting times. And I already have the title, The Chronicles of the Narnia Years. Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, if you want some more, drop me a line at oxso@mail.com just to let me know that all the listens to the podcast weren't actually me.